In the northern October afternoon, the autumn tiger is the most powerful. The villagers on the ground, most of them rushed to double grab, endure the high heat, and worked in the field. The man in the village, at this moment, sweating and dancing with a sickle, wherever he passes, a piece of corn falls down. The few women who had been behind them quickly followed, and swiftly moved the corn stalks into bundles, put them on the cart, and sent them to the production team's warehouse. Those who can compete in the double tier are all experienced people. Therefore, the division of labor in the whole process is clear and extremely fast. Yelaosi, get out of here. You haven't done more than half the work this morning. Are you ashamed of yourself? Hearing the angry voice of the village chief, the villagers who were stuffing their heads at work couldn't help but look up to see the excitement. After hearing who the village chief was shouting, he bowed his head and continued to work. Yelaosi was scolded, "That's normal." Yezayuking, who was picking up wheat ears, raised her head and glanced at her parents who were sitting in the shade of the tree. With a helpless sigh, he led his brother to continue his work. In this era when most people are very simple and hard-working, her father Yelaosi is simply a stranger. Yezayuking's grandparents have 4 children in total, and his father is 4th, the youngest child in the family. From childhood to adulthood, whether it's a pungent and petty grandma, or a grandfather who has always been very serious outside, he loved him very much. Because of this, her father, Yejiungong, grew up so old and didn't do any heavy work. Yejiungong has been wandering outside while other teenagers in the village were earning work points. Every time he was given a job, he could always find all kinds of reasons to escape. Although he hasn't done anything sneaky, it is still looked down upon. But he has a thick-skinned face. Anyway, the centimeter of his parents and a few brothers is enough to feed him. As for the gossip of the people in the village, he didn't care at all. When he was about to say a kiss, the girl from Shilibaxiang was a little better, and she didn't like him at all. And for those with relatively ordinary conditions, he felt that they were not worthy of him. Even if there are some young girls who are so confused by his face and want to be with him, they are prevented by their parents at home. During that time, the 2 old men turned their hair grey because of his marriage. As a result, when he was just in his early 20s, he found someone for himself. This object is Yezayuking's mother Jo Kyun in this life. Jo Kyun is an educated youth. The family conditions are very good. In 6 years or so, he responded to the call of the country and ignored the opposition of his family. With enthusiasm, he took the initiative to come to the countryside to support construction. When I first came here, she is also determined to make a contribution in this strange land. How can a little girl who has been spoiled since childhood can adapt to such a huge amount of labor? So not long after, she cried and shouted that she wanted to go home. It is impossible to go home. In response to the call to come to the countryside, how can it be possible to let you go home without making a contribution in the countryside? Of course, it is necessary to take root here and engage in construction. Jo Kyun, who couldn't go home, thought for a long time, and finally made up his mind to find someone here, which can be regarded as finding a support for herself. In this way, Father Yet, who often mixes with lesbians, naturally picked up a bargain. The lesbians who come from the big city, even if they have to find someone here, they look at their faces. It's a coincidence, and the same is true of Father Yet. So if 2 people hit it off, it will naturally be a success. At the beginning, the Ye family was very happy that Dad found a beautiful young woman from the city. After the 2 got married, they discovered that there was a daughter-in-law here. This was for them to invite another ancestor back. Some light work, Yejiungong did it smoothly. But the work was a little heavier, and before Mother Ye refused, Dad Ye jumped off his feet and refused to let his wife do it. Therefore, after Yezayuking was born, the work points of 2 people are only enough to feed themselves. Yezayuking and her younger brother's rations were basically subsidized by their grandma. Thinking of this, Yezayuking sighed helplessly. In recent years, she has not said about Ye Jiangong's behavior. However, Ye Jiangong has been spoiled by his parents since he was a child, and he has no consciousness of working at all. Before Ye Ziyuking was young, what she said was useless at all. Now that Ye Jiangong and Zhou Qiun are able to earn rations to support themselves, is it the result of Ye Ziyuking's tireless nagging for so many years? It is a pity, whether it is Ye Jiangong or Zhou Qiun, it is a lazy habit after all. As long as the opportunity is found, I will try my best to be lazy. It seems that I have to recite them when I go back tonight. However, although Ye Jiangong is a couple, lazy and selfish. However, they treated Ye Ziyuking and her brother very well. It is precisely because of this that Ye Ziyuking has not given up on them. www.mtlnovel.com. Moreover, Ye Ziyuking is still willing to do some labor within his capacity. Ye Jiangong does not have the consciousness of his daughters. The captain's words are not painful to Ye Jiangong at all. Captain, it's not that I want to be lazy. We grew up in a village, what kind of person I am Ye Laozi, don't you know? Although I usually don't like to work, but it is related to the interests of the collective, I have never been sloppy. I am really uncomfortable, so I just rest here for a while. Hearing his sophistry, the captain didn't wait to say anything. Zhou Qiun, who was sitting next to him, nodded hurriedly. No, my head is not feeling well these days. I let him rest for a few days, but he was afraid of delaying the team and had to come out. He really couldn't hold on. He just took a rest next to him. Although the interests of the collective are very important, but in his current situation, if he insists on working, if something goes wrong, wouldn't it cause trouble for the collective? Hearing Zhou Qiun's words, Ye Jiangong stroked his head and nodded with approval. Seeing the two of them singing together, the captain couldn't help rolling his eyes. Don't come to this set for me, get me up and work quickly. I tell you, if you want to be lazy again this year, I will deduct your work points. At the end of the year, I see what you can do if you can't eat. Hearing the captain's words, Ye Jiangong looked up at the sun hanging in the sky at this time, and the sweaty villagers in the rice fields. He rolled his eyes, followed the hand that Mama Ye was holding on to him, and lay down softly. Baby his dad, babe his dad, wake up, what's wrong with you, wake up, don't scare me. Hearing Zhou Qiun's words, the surrounding villagers were all bluffed. Although they don't like Ye Lao Si, they are in a village after all, and of course they don't want him to have an accident. 4 daughters-in-law yet, wasn't your body well before you headed the house? Why did you faint suddenly? Hearing this villager's question, Zhou Qiun stretched out his hand and wiped his eyes, and his eyes suddenly became red. The head of the house had never done such a heavy job before, and suddenly came out to participate in the double grab, and the body naturally couldn't stand it. Just now he told me that he was unwell and wanted to take a break. I thought he would just rest for a while, but I didn't expect him to pass out. My poor master, you said something is wrong with your tiredness, what should we do? Hearing Zhou Qiun's words, the surrounding villagers suddenly showed an indescribable expression on their faces. Ye Lao Si is so lazy, can he say such a thing? Besides, everyone is watching. He basically hasn't done much work these days, most of the time, he hides under the tree. How could Zhou Qiun feel embarrassed, saying that Ye Jiangong was exhausted? Ye Ziyuking, who finally squeezed in from the crowd, saw Ye Jiangong lying on the ground and Zhou Qiun squatting beside him wiping his tears. In her heart, she suddenly became anxious. Although the parents look to outsiders, they have some superb quality. But for their siblings, it was very good. As a result, she had just squatted next to Father yet and hadn't waited to show her sadness. I felt that I was holding Papa Yi's hand and being gently scratched. Ye Ziyuking was stunned for a moment, and suddenly reacted, dare to believe that this is pretending to be dizzy. Although I feel a little embarrassed in my heart, this is my own father. After brewing some emotions, Ye Ziyuking also cried with her mother. As for the skin, what is that? Father, you told me before at home that the double grab time was tight and the task was heavy. Although you are usually lazy, and you know the importance, get ready to work this time to help the village double grab. But Dad, why don't you know how to take care of your body? The uncles and aunts in the village are so capable. They have been trained since they were teenagers. What can you follow? I know you don't want to cause trouble to the village leaders, but you don't want to think about it. Don't you make everyone feel more sorry for your fall? Hearing what Yazayuking said, the people around who were originally impatient with Yejiungong in their hearts couldn't help but think a little bit. Indeed, they can't ask Yelaosi to compare with them who are used to farm work. Moreover, a lot of what Yazayuking said just now doesn't sound like a child of this age can tell. It should be heard from the large population. It seems that Yejiungong really has the heart to change. Yazayuking clearly felt the change in the attitude of the people around him, and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. These words really cannot be said by a child. The point is that Yazayuking is not a child either. Yazayuking also doesn't know what is going on with him now. If she had to subdivide, she probably reborn in this era with memories. Yazayuking from the previous life is considered a 00, when she was born, the conditions in the family were already very good. In addition, there is a brother in the family who inherits the family business, she only needs to grow up happily. Therefore, Yazayuking's life is rich and free. Whether it's piano, dancing, diving, horse riding. As long as she is interested, her family will give her full support. It's a pity that the good times didn't last long. Yazayuking had just grown up, and the family went bankrupt due to various reasons. My mother is not in good health, my father is shocked, and his spirits are rapidly deteriorating. In order to prevent her father from going to jail, she and her brother worked several jobs a day during that time. I worked during the day and set up a stall at night, and tried a lot of work. It is probably that their brothers and sisters do have business talents, and their father was more righteous when he was in business, leaving a lot of contacts between them. So after several years of hard work, they finally paid off their debts. As a result, Yazayuking hasn't waited for Yazayuking to be happy. Just because of overwork in the past few years, I died suddenly. Woke up again, and came to the 60s. After Yazayuking finished speaking, Jo Kyun immediately felt the change in the attitude of the people around him. She responded quickly to say Yazayuking's words, and boasted a few words of her own master without a trace. Just when she was about to use Yejiungong's health as an excuse to find a place to be lazy, a female voice suddenly came next to her. "Auntie, this is what you are wrong. My uncle is not in good health, so he should go to rest. But, as his wife, when he goes to rest, shouldn't you take the work he should do? Do you finish it for him? Moreover, listening to what we said just now, my fourth uncle wants to pursue progress. In this case, you can't be lazy. If my fourth uncle wakes up and sees you drag him back, he should think in his heart. How sad! You are not taking care of him, you are affecting his progress," the speaker said as he squeezed in from the crowd. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. Yazayuking can see clearly, the girl who talks is her cousin Yazayulai in this life. She looks 14 or 5 years old this year, and her figure is the most common skinny of this era. Because of frequent work, the skin on his face is sallow, and there are some sunburns. It looks like a common country girl. However, her clothes look neat. Although it looks similar to everyone, but I don't know why, it looks particularly attractive when worn on her. Moreover, her hairstyle is different from the double braids that most young girls of this age like to wear, they are high and have a special spirit. Other people present may just think she is very energetic in dressing like this. However, Yazayuking, who has been worn from later generations, was shocked after seeing her dress. Other people can't see it, can't she see it yet? Whether it's her waist-removed jacket or her high ponytail, this is a dress that will only become popular in later generations. Could it be that she also came from later generations? Not right, what she just said, and the current scene, why does it give her a very familiar feeling? Yezayuking's inspiration flashed, she should really be familiar with this picture. This was the content written in the last novel she had read before she was reborn in this world. During the few years that Yezayuking had just traveled through, when he was idle, he could only pass the time by reminiscing about the novels he had read. Someone in the book has the same name as her. When she died suddenly, the book was not over yet, so she kept thinking about it. So Yezayuking's impression of the content in this book can be said to be the deepest. I am going, she is not crossing, she is wearing a book. In this book, her cousin Yezayulai is the heroine. Yezayulai's father was the second child in the family, and he was originally a neglected existence by the elders in the family. In addition, her parents had only 3 daughters and no sons. In this patriarchal age, it is even more difficult to lift your head at home. Therefore, the family does the most work in the house. Usually, he is squeezed by the best uncles in the family. But there is nothing good in the family, but they will never have their share of the family. When Yezayulai reached the age of marriageable age, she was married by someone in her family at will. Her life was very hard. When I was in my 40s, I was too tired and broke my body when I was young. I fell ill and passed away. The best uncles who have been sucking their family's blood have caught up with the trend and made a lot of money. Although he is not rich, he has no worries about food and clothing. The cousin she has always hated is very well married, the husband and wife are loving, and the children are filial. The cousin, even admitted to a key university, has a bright future. Yezayulai was unwilling to die, but she woke up again only to find that she was back in her teens. In this rebirth life, she first constantly brainwashed her parents, increasing the status of the 3 sisters in their parents' hearts. Then, using the uncle's family to look down on her mentality. Constantly plot to separate one's own family. Later, I used my profit to do business in this era and made a lot of money. In the process of starting a business, I met like-minded male protagonists with outstanding family backgrounds. In the end, both careers and love were harvested. When Yezayuking read the original text, she felt that the heroine's struggle was very inspirational, which made her look excited. But when she became the little villain in this book, it made people feel less happy. Yes, Yezayuking's parents are Yezayulai's best uncle and aunt. Yezayuking also admitted that her parents were lazy. However, it is definitely not as superb as written in the book. More importantly, Yezayuking remembers clearly. Her parents in the book, the final ending is not good. After was designed to separate their families, in order to support their 2 children, they had to do coolies and missed the opportunity to earn the first pot of gold. The youngest son in the family was abducted because there was no one to look after him. The couple gave up everything to find their youngest son, but their daughter had an accident and was bullied. Finally, their husband and wife left this sad place with their daughter, and never came back to death. Thinking of this, Yezayuking suddenly felt some chills on her body. When I was reading the book, some readers asked under the article whether their family's experience had anything to do with the heroine. Although the author did not answer, he gave a thumbs up to a comment that said the reader's Virgin Mary. Although Yezayuking felt uncomfortable at the time, she didn't care too much. Now, when she has become the little girl in the book who is almost ruined, she has to think about what to do in the future so that the family can avoid the ending in the book. She does not want to confront Yezayulai, who has the halo of the heroine, but she does not want to be harmed by her. Yezayuking is seriously recalling the content of the book. In the eyes of others, Yezayuking is just there. Why? Wuya, do you have an opinion about what I said? Wuya, although you are not too old now, you are not a child anymore. You should understand many things. I won't say anything about the 4th uncle and the 4th aunt, but you can't help them to be lazy. I know, the 4th uncle did not set you a good example, but the other people in the family are very hard-working. You say who you are not good at, why do you have to learn from your uncle? Yezayuking looked blank when she heard what Yezayulai said. She didn't say a word yet. Why did the heroine say so much by herself? There is no mention in the book that the hostess is such a person who likes to talk to herself, who is also a wordy person. Hey, how do you talk, you? Hearing what Yezayulai said, Jo Kyun quit. In her opinion, although her daughters are always stupid to tell them not to be lazy, they can be anywhere except this and that. She couldn't bear to say it herself, why should others say it? Yezayulai's words are not nice, but they sound to others, but they are all for Yezayuking's good. Moreover, Yezayulai has indeed helped her family with work since she was a child, and her reputation is much better than that of Yezayuking's own family. So, when I heard Jo Kyun seemed to want to refute Yezayulai, the villagers around them all tried to persuade him. This plot takes place in the 3rd chapter of the original book. Yezayulai is like this in the book, a few words made Jo Kyun start a fire. At this time, she just pretended to be frightened and stood aggrieved and waited for others to help her out. And in the original text, Yejeongong couldn't stand the accusations made by others against his wives and daughters. He stood up and helped them to speak, but when someone saw it through, he pretended to be fainted. Since then, the reputation of their family in the village has become even worse. This is also the beginning of their family's tragic ending. At this time, Yezayuking, of course, would not let things develop according to the situation in the book. Mother, don't tell me, the 4th sister is right. Yezayuking reached out and grabbed Jo Kyun's corner of his clothes www.mtlnovel.com with the other hand, she pinched her lap very concealedly. Damn it, it hurts. Of course, the effect is also very good. No, the tears came down all at once. Mother, it's all my fault. My cousin is right. I'm not upset. Oh, I've never been as good as my cousin since I was a kid. My cousin said that I should be beaten, mother. Don't talk about cousin, I am not wronged. At this point, Yezayuking looked at Yezayulai with tears. Cousin, after I go back, I will give you the candy my father gave me, okay, I will listen to you in the future. You let me do your work, and I won't be lazy. I beg you, don't let my mother do so much work. My mother and my dad are about the same body. My dad has passed out, and I'm afraid my mother can't hold on. People in this era are still very simple. Although some people's brains are turning faster, a lot of information can be heard from Yezayuking's words. But no one thought that under their noses, the 2 little girls, who were only in their early 30s, had already engaged in a confrontation. Okay, what are you all around here for? Can't collect the land? Go back to work quickly, Ching girl, don't cry, you don't need you here, you send your parents home to raise. Go ahead. The village chief glanced at Yezayuking and Jo Kyun, and felt that Yezayuking, who was still only 13 years old, was more reliable. Therefore, I entrusted this work to Yezayuking. Cracked the heroine's first target, and Yezayuking was in a good mood. And, she really needs to think about it now, what she will do in the future, in order to save their family. So, after hearing the words of the village chief, Yezayuking simply agreed. Because at this time, everyone is busy with the autumn harvest. The 2 villagers who helped send Yejeongong back, put Yejeongong down and left. Hearing the steps of these people leaving, he was lying on the kong with a calm face. After the bumps all the way, Yejeongong didn't open his eyes, a carp struck up and sat up from the kong. Are they all gone? Oh my old girl, she really looks like me, this head turns fast. Yejeongong glanced at Yezayuking with a beautiful expression on his face. Hearing Yejeongong's words, Jo Kyun's face showed the comforting smile of someone who succeeded him. Isn't it, my young girl's reaction was a lot of lumps. I didn't even react at the time. She cracked and persuaded the people around. Your mother said that it's useless for the girl to go to school. Look, if it wasn't for our young girl to go to school, can you say that? Hearing Zhou Qian's words, Ye Jiangong nodded in agreement. Although they started to let Ye Ziyuking go to school, besides Ye Ziyuking's strong request, they also wanted to take advantage of the family. But after so many years, they found that Ye Ziyuking's brain is really turning very fast, and the results have always been very good. After returning to the college entrance examination a year ago, they have even higher hopes for this daughter. Hearing her parents praise herself there, Ye Ziyuking felt embarrassed in her heart, and hurriedly interrupted their conversation. Parents, don't talk about it anymore, this is not something worthy of praise. Everyone is working hard, but our family is always lazy. What a shame! And, didn't you promise me? You will work hard, why are you lazy again? Hearing Ye Ziyuking's words, Ye Jiangong and Zhou Qian had some embarrassment on their faces. But soon, Ye Jiangong made a straightforward look again. How can it be called laziness? Your mother and I don't do much work normally. I suddenly went to double grabbing, and my body would definitely not be able to stand it. I am not called laziness. Trouble. And, aren't we going to the ground? If we hadn't promised you, we wouldn't have to go out under the big sun today. It's okay, don't talk about it, it's a big deal next time I do more and rest later all right. Hearing what Ye Jiangong said, Ye Ziyuking let out some helpless breath. Forget it, they have been lazy for so many years, and they really can't change it for a while. It's much better now than before, so how can I still stop it? Slowly help them change it. By the way, Dad, Mom, have you noticed that my fourth cousin seems to be a bit against us today? Hearing Ye Ziyuking's words, Zhou Qian curled his lips in disdain. You just found out that she doesn't like us for a day or two. There are a few people in your grandma's house who can see us, especially the second child. Usually I look quite honest, but in fact, my mind is smaller than anyone else, and I do something that people look down on. They just target us when they target us. Anyway, it's useless. It doesn't affect us to take advantage. People have suffered a loss, and they are not allowed to talk about it, vent their anger. Hearing Zhou Qian's nonchalant words, Ye Ziyuking suddenly didn't know whether to say that she sees well or that she has a thick skin. Then again, she didn't have much contact with her second uncle in the past. The second uncle's family presence at home is very low, she really doesn't know what kind of person their family is. Seeing Zhou Qian's nonchalant appearance, Ye Ziyuking felt a little anxious in his heart when he thought of the book they had suffered because of their carelessness. Mom, although that's what I said, but I think it's not good to let them corrupt our family's reputation so much. I will be admitted to university in the future, and my younger brother will also want to study. If they continue to say this, will it affect our studies in the future? Ye Ziyuking knows her parents, and they value her and her younger brother Ye Yumin most. So, start from this point and persuade them. Hearing what Ye Ziyuking said, Ye Jiangong thought for a while, but had to admit that what she said really made sense. You are right. The children of the second brother's family have many hearts and minds. They usually look honest, but like to show others to earn their reputation. Okay, Dad, pay attention to it in the future. Ye Ziyuking breathed a sigh of relief when she heard Ye Jiangong's words. No matter what, it's good for the two of them to pay attention. Seriously, Ye Ziyuking didn't really like the current Ye Ziyulai in her heart. By the way, Qing girl, old son, come here and see what father brought you from the county yesterday. Ye Jiangong suddenly thought of something, and took out a small cloth bag from the cabinet of the Kong. Ye Yumin, who had been sitting there obediently since entering the house, heard his father's call and hurriedly took Ye Ziyuking's hand and came to Ye Jiangong. Ye Jiangong took out 2 chicken cakes that were already deformed from the package. Look, after I entered the city yesterday, your uncle Zhang gave me the chicken cake. It's only 2 pieces. I'll eat it quickly. Seeing the chicken cake in Ye Jiangong's hands, although it is not the first time, Ye Ziyuking is still very moved. Regardless of Ye Jiangong's reputation in the village, the two of them are really good for children. Moreover, it is possible to treat a pair of children almost equally. Sometimes www.mtlnovel.com they will be more biased towards Ye Ziyuking. Because of this, Ye Ziyuking is even more unacceptable, the ending of the two of them in the book. What are you doing? Hurry up! Don't be silly thinking about giving it to your grandma this time. It won't get into their mouths. In the end, it must have entered the second baby's belly. Ye Jiangong stuffed a piece of chicken cake into Ye Ziyuking's hand, and Ye Yumin also held one in his hand. At this time, while swallowing saliva, he looked at Ye Ziyuking eagerly, waiting to eat with Ye Ziyuking. Hearing what Ye Jiangong said, Ye Ziyuking was not prepared to say more. Just like Ye Jiangong said. Although the two elderly people in the family favor Ye Jiangong, they are also good to the other two sons. It would be good if there were more things, like this kind of good stuff. If the quantity was small, the two old people would definitely not eat it by themselves, leaving it to the uncle's cousin. Thinking of this, Ye Ziyuking didn't say more. Dad, I can't eat it myself. The three of us eat separately. Jing nonsense, a piece of chicken cake is only so big, why can't it be eaten? Okay, I ate it in the county yesterday, and I won't eat it. If you can't eat it, just divide it with your mother. Let's eat together. Dad, I will give you my share. Ye Yumin, who was standing next to him, heard what his sister said, and thought for a moment. Although he was a little bit unwilling, he still graciously broke most of the chicken cake in his hands and handed it to Ye Jiangong. At this time, Ye Ziyuking also broke more than half and handed it to Zhou Qiun. Seeing the actions of the two children, Ye Jiangong's smiles on their faces couldn't fall. After a few pushes, the four of my family happily ate 2 small chicken cakes. The fourth family, I heard that the youngest is tired, how is it going? As soon as the voice fell, the door of their room was pushed open from the outside. A young lady in her 60s, with grey hair and thin body, came in. She seems to have just returned from the ground, still covered in dust and corn fleece. Because of the anxiety, the expression on his face was a little serious at this time, and it seemed uncomfortable. Hearing her words, Ye Jiangong changed his face in a second. Mother, I'm fine, but suddenly I do too much work, and some of them are exhausted. No, just come back and rest for a while. The little old lady, who is Ye Ziyuking's grandmother Zhao Chunyua, glanced at Ye Jiangong who was sitting there, and she was relieved in her heart. However, after letting go, the anger in her heart rushed up. Zhao Chunyua stepped forward, and reached out and pinched Ye Jiangong's ear. Well, you little bunny, you are playing with my old lady. I have been your mother for more than 30 years. I don't know what kind of bear you are. You can do it, when double grabbing is so important, do you dare to play tricks? Ye Jiangong was not at all surprised that Zhao Chunyua saw through his little calculations. Mother, mother, my dear mother. Please lightly, the ears are about to fall, the ears are about to fall. Ye Jiangong was not at all afraid of Zhao Chunyua's cold face. Hearing what Ye Jiangong said, even if he knew that he was acting, Zhao Chunyua still let go of her hands with some distress. Okay, since you pretend to be sick, just stay at home. Don't go out if you have nothing to do in the past 2 days. You have returned to the ground this time. It is not too shameful to me and your father. Wait, I will give it to you. You boil an egg to eat. Hearing what Zhao Chunyua said, Ye Jiangong was not at all polite with his own mother. Mother, mother, we have a family of 4. Boil 2 more eggs. Boil 2 more? I think you look like an egg. There are only a few eggs in the family, all of which are boiled for you. Do you think your 2 sisters-in-law have any opinions? It is not that Zhao Chunyua dislikes the 2 children of Ye Jiangong's family, especially Ye Yumin. He was the first boy in the 3rd generation of their old Ye family. As the saying goes, old son, grandson, the lifeblood of grandparents. Although the words are a bit rough, it is true for the older generation in many places. It is precisely because of this that Yejiungong and his family can live so nourished without doing most of the work, and they can send Yezayuking to school. Zhao Chunyua started to work with very quick hands and feet. After a while, he took 2 eggs into the house. Yejiungong took the 2 eggs handed over by Zhao Chunyua, and swiftly peeled one of the eggs. Instead of eating it by himself, he handed it to Zhao Chunyua. "Mother, you can eat this egg. How old I am, what kind of eggs I eat, isn't it a waste? Give it to Qing girl and Taidan." Said that, but Zhao Chunyua's wrinkled face showed a happy smile at this time. "Mother, that's not what I said. You see that you usually work for our family. You need to worry about everything in the family. Usually there is a delicious bite at home, you leave it to the juniors like us, and my son remembers it in his heart. Now that the autumn harvest is so tired, you have to not only do the work in the field, but also worry about the family affairs when you go home. How can I stand it if I replenish my body? Oh, mother, I love you, and you love your son. Don't worry about me. Yejiungong is very handsome, plus he hasn't done any heavy work since he was a child. Therefore, his skin is different from the fairness of most people in this era." At this time, saying this to Zhao Chunyua couldn't stand it at all. With a touch on her face, she took the egg that Yejiungong handed over to her hand. Seeing Yejiungong's eyes, he also became more kind. "Although it was not the first time I saw each other, Yezayuking was amazed at her father's ability to coax people every time. Sure enough, he can be so favored at home, completely based on his own strength. In this family, my elder son is still the most filial piety. He even thinks of me when he eats an egg. Unlike your 2 unscrupulous brothers, who knows to anger me all day long." After finishing speaking, Zhao Chunyua reached out and waved at Yezayuking and Yayuman. Seeing her movements, Yezayuking hurriedly led her brother to Zhao Chunyua's side. Zhao Chunyua reached out and touched Yayuman's head, then split the egg in his hand into 2 and handed it to Yezayuking and Yayuman respectively. Although the egg in Yayuman's hand is obviously not much bigger than hers. However, Yezayuking would be more satisfied in his heart to let some patriarchal old ladies make the act of dividing eggs. "Milk, I don't eat it, you eat it. My father often tells me that you are a great hero of our family, and all good things should be eaten for you." Hearing what Yezayuking said, there were some ignorant Yayuman on the side originally. Although a little reluctant to hold the egg in his hand, he obediently lifted the egg and sent it to Zhao Chunyua. Originally, because Zhao Chunyua loved the house and Wu, he was better with Yezayuking's sisters and brothers than with other grandchildren. Now watching the heartwarming behavior of the 2 children www.mtlnovel.com, I feel more comfortable in my heart. Okay, with such a big milk, it's not enough to eat the things of your 2 children. Besides, the keys to the kitchen at home are in my hands. Whenever I want to eat, I can cook one by myself. After speaking, Zhao Chunyua was ready to go out without waiting for others to speak. As a result, after 2 steps, he was caught by Yejiungong. Before Zhao Chunyua could react, he split the egg he had just peeled into 2 and stuffed one into Zhao Chunyua's mouth. "I don't know you yet, I have given us good things, where I am willing to eat." The eggs are in their mouths, and Zhao Chunyua can't spit them out anymore. Besides, this is her elder son respecting her. Don't look at what Yejiungong said on her lips, but she was happy in her heart. "You guys hurry up and eat, I can tell you that they will be back in a while. No one is allowed to talk about eating eggs, I heard you haven't heard." After speaking, he opened the door and walked out. "Don't be stunned, eat the eggs quickly, did you hear what your milk just said? Especially the iron eggs. Don't tell anyone, we ate eggs at home, did you hear?" Hearing Yejiungong's words, Yayuman nodded fiercely. Then, with some reluctance, I started to eat the eggs in my hands in small bites. And Ye Jiangong also divided the remaining half of the egg into 2 halves, and handed half of them to Zhou Qiun. As a result, as soon as Zhou Qiun took the eggs and waited to eat them, the door of their room was pushed open again. "Okay, I said that your family of 4 came back from the ground, and what are you doing secretly hiding here? It turned out to be secretly operating a small stove here. Eat alone." The one who opened the door was Ye Jiangong's sister-in-law. Is different from Ye Jiangong, who has been idle since childhood. His elder brother has been a very sensible child since he was a child. When he was a teenager, he could help earn centimeters at home. He is strong, and very hard-working, so he was appointed as the captain of the brigade. When he was of marriageable age, the number of people who came to see him was not small. Among these girls, Zhao Chunyua picked Ye Jiangong's sister-in-law. The main reason is that she has many children in her family, and she is the eldest of the family. When she is at home, she can take care of her younger siblings and keep the house in order. She feels that she can afford the responsibilities of her sister-in-law. Unexpectedly, she can indeed take good care of her younger siblings. However, it was limited to her own siblings. For Ye Jiangong, who is so lazy, she is 10,000 people look down on. Although due to Zhao Chunyua's prestige, she dared not act too much. But, usually, he has been staring at Ye Jiangong and his family closely. If Zhao Chunyua gives Ye Jiangong something more, she will make a noise to the whole family, and she needs some compensation from Zhao Chunyua before she will give up. This time Ye Jiangong's family ate eggs and was hit by her. She would definitely not stop easily. As expected, she walked in from the door while she was talking. I walked directly to Ye Yuman, grabbed half of the egg from his hand and stuffed it into his mouth. Not only that, but when Ye Yuman didn't let go, he stretched out his hand and pushed him. Because his parents are not reliable, Ye Yuman was raised by Ye Ziyuking since he was a child. Fearing that the couple will have any bad influence on the child's character, Ye Ziyuking has always attached great importance to the education of her younger brother. Ye Yuman was taught by Ye Ziyuking, very sensible. But no matter how sensible he is only a 5-year-old child. In this era, eggs are the best thing. Ye Yuman got the half of the egg and was not willing to finish it all at once, but was suddenly snatched by the eldest mother. Ye Yuman was taken aback, but he later realized that he had no eggs. After being taken aback for a while, he broke his throat and started crying loudly. Hearing Ye Yuman's cry, Ye Jiangong, who had been sitting on the kong, turned over and got off the kong. From the edge of the kong, he picked up the small broom that Zhou Qiun had placed on the kong to clean the debris on the kong. He hurriedly came to Liu Honghua's face, and he didn't give Liu Honghua time to react. He took this small broom and slapped Liu Honghua's back a few times. Although this little broom is not hard, it is precisely because of this that I was hit by this thing, like a small whip on my body, and it was hot and painful. Ye Laozi, what are you going to do? Are you crazy? I am your sister-in-law. You dare to hit me? Liu Honghua didn't expect that Ye Jiangong would say something else, and he would just get started without saying anything. After a moment of confusion, I only felt a anger, rushing to the Tianling guy from my heart. She rushed towards Ye Jiangong with her teeth and claws. Of course, Ye Jiangong would not stand there and let her fight. While she dodged flexibly, Liu Honghua stretched out her hand. One side can also wave the small broom in his hand. On Liu Honghua's body, he slapped twice. Sister-in-law, what are you doing? I just watched you suddenly snatched our iron egg and swallowed it again. I was afraid that you might choke, so I wanted to help you go smoothly. Look at you, why are you so anxious? Woolen cloth. Ye Jiangong had a smile on his face, but he did not show mercy at all when he started. Sister-in-law, you know that I am the most shameless and skinless person. Here, there is no tradition of not hitting women. If you want to talk to me well, that's fine. If you hit me like this, you have to resist. You can't blame me for hurting you at that time. After all, I am the pillar of the family, and I can't get hurt. At this time, Zhou Qian also reacted. She hurriedly stepped forward and stopped Liu Honghua. Sister-in-law, sister-in-law. What are you doing? Have something to say. Although he was talking persuasively, Zhou Qian's movements were not at all polite. Cooperating with Ye Jiangong, he slapped Liu Honghua twice on Liu Honghua's body by the name of the frame. Ye Ziyuqing was very clever when Ye Jiangong rushed over, leading Ye Yumin to the corner of the room, and waited quietly to watch the show. Seeing how his parents' fighting power was exploding, his heart was full of admiration. Ye Yumin, who was scared just now, was still crying there. At this time, I was looking at my parents intently, joined hands, and beat the big ant, who had a very bad attitude towards him, with no strength to fight back, and couldn't help but split her mouth. Liu Honghua had just been angry by Ye Jiangong's actions, and only when his head heated up, she rushed up. After being beaten a few times, the fevered brain finally calmed down. At this time, she suddenly remembered. Although Ye Jiangong is always hippie smiling, usually at home, as a sister-in-law, she dislikes Ye Jiangong and does not work. Yin and Yang said a few weirdly, most of the time he just smiled, and would not argue with them. After a long time, Liu Honghua actually forgot. When Ye Jiangong was young, www.mtlnovel.com was a famous messenger in the village. At that time, none of the young people in the village dared to provoke Ye Jiangong. Thinking of this, Liu Honghua stopped immediately. Just as Liu Honghua thought, Ye Jiangong knew that he didn't go to work very often. My own family is actually the cheapest of Zhonggong. Of course he will not be embarrassed, but in order not to make it difficult for his parents to take advantage of it in the future, his attitude towards his family is still mild. However, his wife and children are his bottom line. Liu Honghua scared Ye Yumin today, of course he wouldn't let it go. That's why I just shot and beat Liu Honghua a few times. Now that Liu Honghua stopped, Ye Jiangong felt that he had been angry enough just now, so naturally he would not continue to chase. Seeing Ye Jiangong also stopped, Liu Honghua's confidence returned. Ye Jiangong, you are crazy. Don't forget, you are a free food at home. How dare you secretly eat eggs at home and beat me? Get out of here. In this house today, there is you but me. What are you all arguing about? Old folks, it's not time to get off work, you don't work in the field, what are you doing when you come back? And you're fourth, you don't lie down on the kong, what are you doing on the ground? And why is it so messy in this room? What did you do just now? Although Ye Jiangong and Liu Honghua have stopped their hands. However, the space inside the house was originally small. Just now the three of them were chasing me in the house, and the house naturally became messy. And Zhao Chunyua, who had just heard the sound rushing over, saw such a messy room, and suddenly became angry. Hearing Zhao Chunyua's words, Liu Honghua, who had been holding fire in her heart, seemed to have found the backbone. She pointed at Ye Jiangong and said viciously, "Mother, it's not my sister-in-law who is cruel and can't tolerate my uncle. But you can find it in the village. Look at a male like Ye Jiangong. The children are more than 10 years old, and they still point to their brothers all day long. Just raise it, and I won't say anything. But mother, look at him, he hit me just now. My uncle beats my sister-in-law, which family can do this kind of thing? Together with me, I usually raise him with good food and drink. I have to be beaten by him. Separate family, mother, today must be separated. I can't stay in the same family with him for a whole day. I know you and my father are partial, but if you don't separate today, I'll be the head of the family. Separate out by yourself." Hearing what Liu Honghua said, Zhao Chunyua was also stunned. My son knows that Ye Jiangong has such a temperament. To say that he drove around in order to take advantage of it, she believed. However, Zhao Chunyua didn't believe he would do it if it wasn't for a special reason that he shot his own sister-in-law. Zhao Chunyua, who was eccentric to her son, gave Liu Honghua a fierce look out of trust in Ye Jiangong. Which family should I divide? I and the old man are not dead yet, so you just want to divide the family. Why, do you think our two old guys are dragging you down? You won't find any better if you make excuses, and you dare to be in front of me. I'm telling a lie. The fourth child, did you beat her? I did it. Zhao Chunyua didn't listen carefully at all. What did Ye Jiangong say? After hearing Ye Jiangong's words, Zhao Chunyua turned her head directly and said to Liu Honghua. Look, I said, the fourth child is impossible. After half talking, Zhao Chunyua suddenly felt that something was wrong. She turned her head and glanced at Ye Jiangong, even her voice became sharp. What did you just say? Did you really beat your sister-in-law? You are crazy, that's your sister-in-law. Seeing Zhao Chunyua's shocked look, Ye Jiangong smiled at her with some embarrassment. Mother, I'm not beating my sister-in-law. It's just that she snatched the iron egg's egg when she came up and swallowed it in one bite. I was afraid that she would choke, so I wanted to help her go smoothly. I didn't expect my sister-in-law to misunderstand. Obviously, you were so angry that I snatched your son's egg and came to revenge me on purpose. Sister-in-law, although you robbed a child's egg, you did really shamelessly. But, who told you to be my eldest-in-law? Forget it, what you say is what you say, anyway you keep looking at me unpleasantly. It's not once or twice to pour dirty water on me, I'm used to it. Ye Jiangong's words can be wronged, but wronged. Ye Ziyuking, who had been following him, couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. Seeing her daughter's movements, Ye Jiangong lowered his head, blinked at her, his face narrowed, and Ye Ziyuking couldn't help but laugh. Ye Ziyuking still feels embarrassed about their family taking advantage of Zhonggong. But like Ye Jiangong, family is her bottom line. It's not right for their family to eat eggs secretly, but Liu Honghua came up and snatched a 5-year-old kid's things and stretched out his hand to push him. It was not Liu Honghua's. When Ye Jiangong was sent back, it was almost time for lunch. That's why Zhao Chunyua asked for leave and made lunch for the family by the way. They stayed in the house for such a long time, and the rest of the Ye family who had been working at this time also returned home one after another. Where are all the people? Is the meal still okay? Ye Taizu, who had just entered the house, couldn't help raising his voice when he saw the cold pot and stove in the kitchen. They have limited time to rest at noon. They have been hungry for a whole morning after doing physical work on the ground under the big sun. When I came back home, I couldn't even eat hot rice. As the head of the Ye family, Ye Taizu couldn't help starting a fire at this time. After hearing the old man's voice, Zhao Chunyua reacted. She just heard the sound from Ye Jiangong's room. Throwing away half of the food, hurried over to see the situation. The food is still in the pot. Here, the food will be ready soon, wait a while. Zhao Chunyua raised her voice first, and shouted to the outside. Then he turned his head and glared at Ye Jiangong and Liu Honghua fiercely. Why should you two go? I will pack you up when the meal is over. Hearing what Zhao Chunyua said, Ye Jiangong just shrugged and didn't take it too seriously. The one who is favored is always confident. This sentence applies to any situation. Instead, it was the very powerful Liu Honghua who was clamoring just now. At this time, there was some worry in her heart. Don't look at how hard she said just now, but in fact, she still knows what her own man is like. Although I can't say it is filial piety, but I always respect my parents very much. Even the younger brother Ye Jiangong, he loved very much. Seriously, Liu Honghua is really not sure that she can persuade her own man. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com followed her out for a single order. Seeing Liu Honghua dingy out of her house, Ye Yuman, who had been quiet, ran to Ye Jiangong and hugged his thigh. Father, you were too good just now. Just like Monkey King, you slapped the eldest mother away. When Yazayuking is free, she often tells some short stories to Yayuman. Recently, she is talking about Journey to the West. In Yayuman's small mind, Monkey King is the best. And now, Yejiangong, who had beaten Lu Honghua away, was as powerful as Monkey King in his heart. Of course. Son, don't worry, your father will protect you no matter what. I heard Yejiangong's words, although Yayuman was still young at this time. But I also feel that my father at this time is very calm and reliable. At this moment, Zhao Chunyua's voice came from outside the door. Hurry out and have dinner. Hearing this, Yejiangong hurried out. I completely forgot that there was a child in my arms. If it weren't for Zhou Qiun to take care of the child, Yayuman would have been hit by his father, who he thought was very reliable, and hit the door. Because of this period, the labor in the family has to go to the ground to participate in the double gun, and the workload is very heavy. Plus this year's grain harvest, it's pretty good. Therefore, the food provided by the Ye family has improved significantly in the past few days. Yesterday, Zhao Chunyua killed a hen in the family to improve the food for the big guy. Today at noon, Zhao Chunyua simmered the other half of the chicken that was left unfinished yesterday. The fragrance came out, and those around the dining table waiting for the meal all stared scorchingly at the big pot of chicken that Zhao Chunyua brought out. After the meal started, Zhao Chunyua first picked a few pieces of good meat and put them in Yetai's bowl. Then, I put together 3 sons and 2 grandsons. Okay, let's eat. As her voice fell, everyone on the table. Unanimously, they stretched out their chopsticks toward the pot of chicken. Don't look at the chicken, pots are quite big, but potatoes are more inside. Plus, Zhao Chunyua just took away a few more pieces. The remaining chicken is not much. If the action is a little bit slower, you won't be able to eat anything. Yejiangong and Zhou Qiun are 2 people, don't look at their normal work. But at this time, the combat effectiveness can be regarded as the strongest in the family. Only 2 people's chopsticks fluttered. Before Yazayuking could react, there was a piece of chicken in her bowl. Then, Yayuman's bowl was put together again. Then, Yejiangong and Zhou Qiun unceremoniously extended their chopsticks to the chicken pot. Affected by the education she received in the previous life, even though she has lived in this world for so many years, she still can't adapt to this way of eating. However, Yazayuking doesn't have to do it, Yejiangong's combat effectiveness is the best. Waiting for the chicken in the pot, after all the chicken has been clamped. Yazayuking probably swept it, and found that, sure enough, their family of 4 had the most chicken in the bowl. Yejiangong and Zhou Qiun looked at each other, expressing satisfaction with their combat effectiveness. After that, Yazayuking and Yejiangong, 2 people with a tacit understanding, picked a piece of chicken from their bowl and put it in the bowls of Zhao Chunyua and Yetaizu. With the loving smiles of the 2 old men and the fierce gazes of other people around the dining table, they calmly bowed their heads to eat. Chicken is so delicious. After the Ye family members had finished eating, Yazayuking's second aunt, who was the mother of Yazayulai in the book, didn't say anything at all, so she stood up very consciously and prepared to clean up tableware. It is no wonder that the Ye family, except for the third sister Yejianhong who Yejiangong married out. Of the remaining 3 sons, only the second child, Yejianjun, has no sons. In this era, especially in the rural areas of this era, no son would be laughed at without a son. It is precisely because of this that Ye Erbo's family usually has such a low sense of presence at home. Moreover, he works hard like an old scalper. After Lu Mei piled the bowls and chopsticks together, Yazayulai suddenly stood up from her position. Mom, don't worry about packing up. Stopped Lu Mei's movements, Yazayulai turned her head to look at Yetai's grandpa. I remember that our village is generally not separated. Women take turns to clean up the dishes after eating. Why is my mother basically cleaning up in our house? Except for the aunt who did it several times, the third aunt never did it. Cleaned up. Although these things in the house, Zhao Chunyua is in charge of most of the time. However, as long as Ye Taizi speaks, everyone in the family will no longer object. Yi's family is a standard male lead outside and female lead inside. As far as things in the house are not excessive, Ye Taizi never asks. So at this time, he looked at Zhao Chunyua. What? Think I let your mother do more work? Zhao Chunyua looked at Lu Mei and Ye Ziyuking, and asked with some unpleasant tone. Although she is partial to Ye Jiangong, she doesn't have a lot of favor with Zhou Qian's daughter-in-law. Is angry now, it is only because she feels that Ye Ziyulai's questioning has compromised her face. No, mother, Sanya doesn't mean that. I'll go to wash the bowl right away, and I will finish it soon. Hearing what Lu Mei said, Ye Ziyulai had some hatred for iron but not steel. But she also knew in her heart that her parents had been oppressed at home for so many years. If it weren't for something major, she would definitely not dare to resist. Didn't she even think that she should do all these things in her previous life? But to live again, she will never let their family repeat the same mistakes. Mother, don't worry. We have some things, it's better for us to say clearly. Father, milk, my mother usually does a lot of work at home. On the contrary, it's my third aunt, who doesn't do much work in the field. Why? I can't do the work at home? Why? She thought it was the old society now. She is the eldest lady of the landlord's house, waiting for someone to wait for her. Hearing what Ye Ziyulai said, Ye Taizu, who was sitting there, straightened up straight. You shut up and say everything, don't you want to live anymore? Once, Ye Ziyulai was most afraid of this grandpa. She really didn't feel anything terrible about him when she lived again. Am I wrong? She can do it, but she won't let me say it. Just as the grandfather and grandson were confronting each other, Lu Honghua, who had been sitting there watching the show, also made a sound. It's not that I said, the fourth child is indeed a bit awkward. Just now, the fourth child beat me up. Anyway, I am his sister-in-law, so doing this is a bit awkward. Ye Ziyulai was very surprised when she heard Lu Honghua's words. In fact, there are some people who look down on each other in their hearts www.mtlnovel.com, but at this time, because they have a common enemy, the two of them actually talked to each other, and they cooperated very tacitly and talked about Ye Jiangong. Bad things about the family. Okay, I know what you two want to say. You will start working right away, and you can directly say, your family, talk about what you two want. After listening for a while, Ye Taizi directly interrupted the two of them. Separate. Separate. The two said in unison. Hearing what they said, Ye Taizi glanced at his two sons. Is that what you mean? Hearing that Ye Taizi couldn't hear the emotions, Ye Boss and Ye Er were scared to death. They never thought that these two men were so courageous. Didn't discuss with them at all, and even directly said that he wanted to separate. This is not to divide the family, it is to kill them. Dad, we didn't mean that. Yes, Dad, the child is young and ignorant. Nonsense, don't be angry. Yes, Dad, I'll clean up her when I go back. Ye Taizi's gloomy expression looked better when he heard the words of his two sons. As long as the son doesn't stray from them, other things are not a big deal. Since you have no intention of separating families, take care of your wives and children, and don't let me hear this next time. Forced by Ye Taizi's majesty, two men, both in their 40s, nodded obediently at this time, dare not say a word. After suppressing his two sons, Ye Taizi put his eyes on Ye Jiangong. Old Fourth, did you really beat your sister-in-law just now? Ye Jian functioned in the home of the wind and water, thanks to his ability to look at the faces of his parents. As soon as I heard this, I knew that Ye Taizi must be angry. Knowing that what he said was wrong at this time, Ye Jiangong hurriedly pulled Ye Ziyuking with his hands behind his back. Ye Ziyuking knew that it was time for him to play. Although Ye Taizu and his wife have some patriarchs, as Ye Jianggong's daughter, she is considered the most favored among the Ye family girls. Plus, as an adult, even if her body becomes smaller, she will not be as naughty and sloppy as a real child. With the advantage of picking the appearance of her parents, she looks good, and she is also very good at studying. Therefore, she is still relatively favored at home. Grandpa, don't blame my dad loves us too. Ye Ziyuking sobbed, some redness in her eyes. She told the truth about what happened in the house just now, without any partiality. You also know that my dad loves my brother the most. He was frightened like that by his elder aunt. Only for a while did my dad have some trouble controlling his temper. I blamed me for this. I didn't take good care of my brother. Grandpa, you blame me. Var. Before Ye Taizu could speak, some of Ye Ziyuking's uncle Ye Jiandang couldn't sit still. Although my mother-in-law suffered a loss, she robbed a 5-year-old child to eat. He felt ashamed to speak out. Dad, this matter is just a misunderstanding. It's almost time for work, so let's go first. Ye Jiandang couldn't stay in the house at all, regardless of Liu Honghua's resistance, he pulled her out. The bitter master is gone, Ye Taizu just said a few words about Ye Jianggong, and this matter is over. Seeing Ye Jianggong's family happily returning to the house, Ye Ziyulai gritted her teeth bitterly. I count them lucky this time, she doesn't believe that their family can always be so lucky. Daughter-in-law, what happened to Si Yeta today? Do you think she has been targeting our family today? Of course Zhou Qiun felt what Ye Jianggong said. I also think this girl is a bit abnormal today. I used to be my sister-in-law alone, and I didn't like this or that at home. Everyone ignored her. After a long time, she stopped. Now the 4 girls don't know what's wrong with her, and she sang along with her aunt. Look at it, let's wait for the noise in the house from now on. Hearing Zhou Qiun's words, Ye Ziyuking couldn't help but admire her parents' transparency. This is not what it says in the original book. In the beginning, Ye Ziyulai used Liu Honghua's ability to pick things up to disturb the house. Later, Ye Taizu was forced to separate. Ye Ziyulai and his family have not only gained benefits, but also gained a good reputation outside. It provided a lot of convenience for Ye Ziyulai to do business in the future. Now it seems that Ye Ziyulai is about to turn their old Ye family upside down. Of course, Ye Jianggong and Zhou Qiun only talked about their thoughts. As for other things, given their status in the home, they are not in their turn to take care of them. After the two of them stopped talking, Ye Ziyuking looked up at them. Whether it is Ye Jianggong or Zhou Qiun, they are used to being lazy and skating at home, and the elders in the family spoil them. The sisters-in-law said a few words, and they treated it as if they hadn't heard it, and others couldn't do much. But no one knows that these two people will be under the control of their own daughters. No, when they saw this expression, both of them were agitated. You look at me, I look at you, I don't know what I did wrong. They went to work on the ground yesterday, and they didn't sleep in bed this morning. Before dinner in the morning, Zhou Qiun helped burn the fire, and Ye Jianggong even went to accompany his eldest brother to pick up a load of water. Thinking of this, they are almost moved by themselves. In the past 2 days, the two of them are really hard-working. Ye Ziyuking sighed when seeing the two people with their faces in circles. Dad, Mom, didn't we say it? If there is something delicious in the house, let your grandparents eat it first. Hearing Ye Ziyuking's words, Ye Jianggong frowned. Qing girl, you are angry because of this, what a big deal. Didn't your milk give your grandfather the chicken? Later, we also gave you milk? Besides, we don't eat these chickens. I can't get into your father and your milk bowl, so why don't we eat it? The more I said, the more upset Ye Jianggong. Okay, you can eat some of it, don't worry about it. After Ye Jianggong finished speaking, he turned around and stopped talking to Yezayuking. Seeing him, Yezayuking sighed. Sure enough, some of their views are still different, and they have to be reformed slowly. I can't let my family suffer even if I don't say it, but I always take advantage of others, which is not so good. Since Yezayuking came to this era, her sleep quality has been very good. However, I thought that I was actually wearing a book. Moreover, it turned out to be a small cannon fodder in this book. Yezayuking was lying on the kong and couldn't sleep. She carefully recalled the contents of the book there, wishing to recall every word in the book that she had read before. In this way, I can avoid their family as much as possible. The tragic ending like in the book www.mtlnovel.com. I don't know if it is because of the influence of crossing. In the last life, Yezayuking's memory is very good. And this life has become even more outstanding. Although I haven't been to the realm of memorability, it's not too different. Now, she is trying hard to dig out the content of this book from the depths of her memory. It really reminded her of a lot of things that she hadn't cared about before. When recalling one of the clips, Yezayuking suddenly sat up from under the bed. Green girl, what's wrong? Have you had a nightmare? Now the Ye family is not separated, the entire extended family lives in the same courtyard. Therefore, Yezayuking and his family live in a house. However, the area of this house is relatively large. When he went to bed at night, Yejiungong used the curtain again and drew it in the middle of the kong, which was regarded as dividing the room into two parts. Even if they sleep with a family of 4, the house is still spacious, but there is no privacy. So, Yezayuking suddenly sat up, and Jo Kuyun on the other side of the curtain immediately noticed it. Yezayuking shook her head when she heard Jo Kuyun's words. Thinking that she couldn't see her movements at all, Yezayuking could only lower her voice and replied, "Mother, I'm fine, I didn't have nightmares, I just remembered something suddenly." Don't think so much, go to bed early, and get up early to work tomorrow morning. Although their family of 4 can't do much work even if they get to the ground, they still have to show their attitude. Otherwise, the village head will come to their home again to talk. Upon hearing Jo Kuyun's words, Yezayuking happily agreed. But she was lying on the bed, her brows frowned tightly. When she just recalled the contents of this book, she suddenly remembered. In the description of this book, there was a very heavy shower at noon on the last day of the double grab. This led to the fact that the grains on the drying farm were not collected in time. Although everyone tried desperately to rescue, nearly half of the grain was wetted by rain. Because of improper preservation, a lot of it became moldy. This led to the fact that most of the villagers did not have enough food in their villages after they paid the task grains this year. Yezayuli just caught this, and constantly teased her parents and uncle's family. In the end, they forced Yetizu to give up their family without giving birth and eating a lot, so they were separated from the Ye family. There will be heavy rain on the last day. Yezayuking didn't know it before. Now that I know it, I can't bear to let the villagers in the village lose their hard-harvested food because of a heavy rain. The problem now is that even the older generations in the village who are experienced in life have not noticed the rainstorm. What reasons did she use to convince the cotters in the village to trust her judgment? Thinking of this, Yezayuking couldn't help feeling some headaches. Because she was thinking about things in her heart, when Yezayuking got up the next morning, she naturally looked a little listless. "Ching girl, why don't you take a day off at home today?" Jo Kuyun looked at Yezayuking's state, and felt a little uneasy in his heart. Yezayuking shook her head hurriedly when she heard Jo Kuyun's words. She is also going to go to the ground today to see if she can find some, which seems to have a scientific basis, and can persuade the village cotters of reasons. Besides, it is necessary to leave a good impression on the village cotters, right? Seeing Yezayuking shook his head, thinking that their family ran back halfway through yesterday. Yezayuking doesn't go again today, it's really not so good. Therefore, Jo Kuyun can only feel a little distressed and buttoned a straw hat on Yezayuking's head. "After you go, Don't be silly and rush to work with others, and sit under the big tree next to the ridge for a while. You are a kid, and no one cares about you. Hearing Jo Kyun's words, Ye Zayuking nodded irresponsibly. While waiting for a break, Ye Zayuking sat directly under the big tree in a daze. Thoughts no longer know where they are going. Sister, sister, aunt. Ye Yuman, who was sitting next to him, suddenly pushed Ye Zayuking and pointed at the group of ants next to her leg. Hearing what Ye Yuman said, Ye Zayuking moved her feet lazily to prevent the ants from crawling over. Halfway through her movement, she suddenly stopped. Ye Zayuking only felt her eyes light up, and found that she had drilled a horn. She is not doing a question, she must get the correct answer based on the process. Now that she has the correct answer in her hand, she can completely fabricate some evidence indiscriminately. When the heavy rain really fell, I believe that the cotters in the village would no longer be entangled in how she discovered the rain. Thinking of this, Ye Zayuking couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Anyway, the rain will come down at noon on the last day of the double grab. She went to the village cotter to talk about this in the morning, and there was no time. Moreover, they will not have much time to ask her. Perfect. All the villagers in the village are rushing to harvest food wholeheartedly. In just 1 week, all the crops in the field have been collected. At this time, they are drying in the drying yard in the village. Ye Zayuking, who has always been less concerned about the autumn harvest because of something in his heart, has recently paid special attention to the double grab. When I was eating last night, I heard Ye Taizu and Zhao Chunyua talk about the village chief who wants the villagers to put these grains in the warehouse tonight, and when they go to hand in the task grain tomorrow. Ye Zayuking knew that today is what the book says, it will be the day when it will rain heavily. So early this morning, Ye Zayuking urged Ye Jiangong and Jo Kyun to go to the field as soon as possible. After waiting for the two of them to go to work, Ye Zayuking pretended to sway around the field, and then, with a surprised expression, ran towards the village chief not far away. San Chu Gong, do you have time now? I have something to tell you. Ching girl, did you ask me for anything? Although the village head's impression of Ye Jiangong and his wife is not particularly good, I think the two of them are lazy and do not seek to make progress. But for the little girl Ye Zayuking, he still has a good impression. The full name of the head of the village Ye is Ye Wenhua. From this we can see how much the elders in his family hope that he can become a cultural person. Village Mayor Ye did read for a few days when he was young. It was just that it was forced to stop because of the war. Ye Zayuking has a good grades in school, but she doesn't like to ski like her parents. For such younger generations, Chief Ye naturally likes them. Hearing the words of a village chief, Ye Zayuking's face had some uncertain expressions. My uncle, when I was just resting, I saw ants walking around on the ridge one after another. When I came to you just now, I also saw a few fish jumping out of the water to breathe. Also, the weather will be very hot in the past 2 days. It stands to reason that the sun is so full and the air should be relatively dry, but today's air is somewhat moist. And when I went out this morning, I found that the top few leaves of the big tree in my yard had been swaying. This situation is very similar to what I saw in the book before the convective rain. I feel that something is not quite right, so I want to come over and talk to you. Ye Zayuking's words are very solemn. But Mr. Ye didn't take these words to heart. There are many kinds of old farmers in the village who have lived all their lives. Their ability to perceive changes in the weather is much better than that of a little guy like Ye Zayuking. They all said that there will be no rain in the last 2 days. In comparison, Mr. Ye is still more willing to trust his old buddies. Of course, Ye Zayuking is also for the consideration of the village. She must not discourage the children's desire to do things for the village. So, village chief Ye slowed his voice and tried to be kind. Ching girl, the third uncle knows what you said, I will discuss it with other village officials in the village. If there is a sign of rain, we will contact everyone and collect the food as soon as possible. Says this, but Yazayuking can tell at a glance that he is now perfunctory. Sansiagong, what I'm saying is true. The book says that in summer, because of the strong sunshine and strong evaporation, the air will expand and rise when heated, and then it will cool down at high altitudes, and it will condense into rain and fall. The raindrops will be very large, and the downpour will fall sharply. And thunder and lightning add up. This kind of relationship is called convective rain. Usually it appears in the summer afternoon, and because the weather has always been very good before this kind of occurrence. So most people have no way to predict it in advance. I heard my grandfather said at home yesterday that the rice has been sun-dried for a day. You originally planned to put away the grains this evening. In fact, if we put them away this morning, it won't have much impact. The convective rain will be rushing, and it will be particularly heavy. If it really rains, it will be too late for us to harvest grain. Yazayuking's set sounded very scientific and profound. After speaking out, the head of the village yet only felt that he was dizzy. He didn't understand this long list of ups and downs. But he understood that Yazayuking said that this kind of rain would be very urgent and heavy. Originally, Chief Ya village did not take Yazayuking's words to heart. However, after this string of words that were particularly powerful, after hearing it came out, he had to pay attention to it in his heart. He was able to become the village chief, and, even in the most severe years of the famine, he didn't let anyone starve to death in the village. It was his courage, carefulness, decisiveness, and caution. Just like Yazayuking said, he is also going to put away the grain anyway, so he won't delay anything a day and a half earlier. Okay, the third uncle will believe you this time. I will find someone to collect the grain now. www.mtlnovel.com Kinjiatu, if it really rains like you said at noon today, you can be regarded as a village in the village. It's a great achievement. Of course, it doesn't matter if it doesn't rain. It's just for everyone to collect the food during the day and save them from working in the dark most of the night. Yazayuking knew that Chief Ya was comforting herself. She was afraid that the rain would not fall, and she was burdened. Yazayuking accepted his kindness. San Shu Gong, I know, then I will go back if there is nothing wrong. Zhou Qiun, who was enjoying the cool under the tree, saw Yazayuking approaching, and hurriedly pulled her over. What did you say to Uncle San? Hearing Zhou Qiun's words, Yazayuking thought for a moment, and repeated to her what he had just said to the village chief. After listening to Yazayuking's words, Zhou Qiun had some worries in his heart. I'm afraid that if it doesn't rain in the village today, the other villagers who know about it will have ideas about Yazayuking. Was anxious, but did not say that Yazayuking was doing something wrong. She just raised her hand and rubbed Yazayuking's head. Really, I've got so much heart at a young age, and I don't know who you are like. Okay, let's go and have fun with your brother. Village head Yet is very prestigious in the village. He gave an order. Although many villagers did not understand why the village head let them receive food in the morning, he did not object to it. They honestly collected the grains on the drying field, and then dumped them into the granary in bags. It is not stated in the book when did the rain come down, only that it was noon. Yazayuking originally thought it was around 11 o'clock. Unexpectedly, just after 10 o'clock, the originally clear sky suddenly rained heavily.